Hello and welcome. Welcome to Ask the Gardener here on the Irish Gardener. I'm Peter Dowdall and this is where I try and help you with your gardening queries and I get through as much as possible of them as I can during the next while. Now, firstly, just to let you know how you get your questions into me. So each week on Instagram and Facebook on my stories, I'll put up a question box if you have a gardening question. So simply type away your gardening query there and then I'll see it and I'll get to it on the next Ask the Gardener. So, moving straight into the questions, a lot of questions have come in already this week, and one from Mary in Cork, and she's asking, I have yellowing on my rose leaves with black spots. What's causing it and what can I do? Well, Mary, they're classic symptoms of rose black spot, which is a fungal disease, and unfortunately, given our climate, warm and damp, fungal infections thrive. So the best way to control these fungal problems is what we call cultural control. So I would say good pruning, right? Now, first of all, remove all the infected growth. Don't compost it. Don't throw it into the compost bin because it'll just spread the spores, okay? So just dump it off site somewhere. Into the neighbour's garden. No, not into the neighbour's garden. Right, dump it off site. So, and then cut back. Now, the best time to prune your roses hard is actually in February, so later after the winter. But cut back. And what you want to always remember is you need good air circulation through the plant. So you don't want any crossing branches because crossing branches will lead to the opposite: poor air circulation, a congested plant, and those conditions then are ideal for the development and spread of fungal problems like this, like black spot or rose mildew or rust and all these things. So pruning is probably the most important thing to do to prevent these fungal problems. Also in the spring, in February, you could give it a drench with the copper sulfate, which is good at preventing a lot of these fungal problems coming in, okay? And also a good rose food. Roses are hungry feeders. It's a bit like ourselves, if you like. If we get an infection, first of all, remove as much of the infection as possible, and then treat the infection, in this case, let's say with copper sulfate, and then give the plant, same as ourselves, give it a tonic to build the immunity, if you like. So give it a good quality rose feed, and that should certainly help, Mary. Then I have Seán in Limerick is saying, my young apple trees have lots of small fruits that won't ripen. Should I leave them? Well, Seán, yes, I would leave them. I know the temperatures are dropping, but it's probably still, where are we, towards the end of September, another couple of weeks, even another week or two, and just let them ripen away, and hopefully they'll come good for you, and hopefully you'll have a very tasty crop of apples. Anne in Galway is asking me, when is the best time to plant tulips? Well, Anne, leave tulips till late in the autumn, even into the winter. I very often don't plant my tulips. I very often don't get around to it till December and even January, right? But certainly not September or early October because it's still far too warm and you want the ground to be cold. You want to even to have in a few frosts because that'll kill off any of the nasties that might feed on the tulip bulbs under the ground. So wait till it's cold. I would say certainly second half of October, even into November, December. Breda in Kerry is asking, should I cut back my hostas now because the leaves are yellowing? Well, yes, Breda, I would, because they're only going to turn into a slimy mess on top of the ground. So cut them back now for aesthetics. All the vibrancy, all the life in that hosta plant is now under the soil. It's underground in their root system. So I would cut it back now. And you could throw those prunings then into the compost heap. They'll make great compost for use later in the year, or for use next year, from next spring onwards. Is it too late to plant garlic? Declan in Waterford is asking me. No, not at all too late, Declan. And you can still plant garlic right through October, again, even into early November. And it just means you'll have a stronger crop earlier next year. So you'll be harvesting earlier next year. Niamh in Wexford, how do I know when my pears are ready to pick? Well, Niamh, much as I love pears, unfortunately they never really ripen on the tree here. I remember where I grew up, we had some pear trees when I was a child, and we get great crops of pears, but they'd never ripen. They'd never ripen on the trees. So I would pick them probably around now, actually. Move them inside where they'll ripen better inside. A good tip or a good trick is put it into a paper bag with some bananas. And whatever it is in the banana, I should know the science behind it. It's been explained to me before, but I can't remember it. But whatever it is that's in the bananas, that will encourage not just the pears, but anything else as well. It'll encourage the pears to ripen. So good tip there, into a paper bag with bananas inside. My hydrangeas have turned brown and papery. Should I cut them back now or leave them over winter? And that's from Deirdre in Kerry. So with hydrangeas, there's a couple of different types. So if you like the macrophylla hydrangeas, which we call the mop heads or the lace caps, the traditional hydrangeas, if you like, that can be blue or pink or white. Well, then I would say no, don't leave them till the spring, because those dead flowers, if you like, the ones that have gone papery, they act as a duvet, if you like. They kind of protect that plant, and they protect the tender nodes and leaf buds inside. They protect them over the winter from the frosts and maybe snows and the cold temperatures. So don't be in a rush to cut them back. No. I would leave that again till February, even early March, before I would start cutting them back now. Now, if the hydrangea is huge, so if it's kind of gone all unkempt and it's very, very big, you could certainly cut part of it back now. But what I mean by that is not the dead flowers and that, but maybe identify some very long or very big stems and just remove them completely or down to within a foot of the ground. So that you could certainly do that now if you wanted. But in general, no, I'd leave the hydrangea blooms alone. But they're the macrophyllas, they're the mop heads and the lace caps. But then you've got the paniculata ones, these gorgeous ones like limelight and polar bear and bobo, these lovely conical white flowers which go that lovely kind of autumny pink at this time of the year. Again, I would probably leave them on till February, March, or early March at latest, for the same reasons. But then you have the hydrangea Annabelles, which of course are very popular over the last few years, really beautiful white ones, but quite soft. You could cut them back now because they're really just going to collapse and they're not going to look great or offer much protection. So you could cut them back, and you could cut them back quite hard. You could cut them back again to within a foot of the ground, I would say, and you'll get masses of vibrant growth then next spring. Now, John and Clare is asking me, my lawn is covered in moss this year. What's the best way to deal with it before the winter? Well, John and Clare, I love questions that come in at the right time, because September is the perfect time for doing what I'm going to suggest to you, and that is to scarify it. Best way, again, moss, it's again, thanks to our climate, warm and damp climate, moss loves these conditions. Moss, of course, is a brilliant plant too, of course, if we can learn to love it in the lawn or everywhere, because it sequesters so much carbon. It's a fabulous, fabulous little plant. However, if you want to remove it from the lawn, scarify it. And what scarifying is, it's like a mechanical rake where you're physically removing the moss and the thatch, which is kind of dead and decaying growth on the soil surface. Scarifying pulls all that up. Now remember, your lawn is going to look worse before it looks better. Okay, so scarify it now in September. The best month apart from September to do it is March, right? Scarify it, get rid of all the moss, it'll physically pull it up. Then I would say you rake all the debris and remove all the debris, makes great compost. If necessary, and it might be from the sound of your question, I would go over it with fresh lawn seed. Again, September is a fine time to do this, even into October, okay? Go over it with a new fresh lawn seed. And pay attention to water. I say that kind of half smiling because nature is obviously taking care of it on a lot of days at the moment, but with new lawn seed, it will need to get water every day, certainly for the first 2 weeks. So days that nature isn't taking care of it, I'd say you might need to give it a sprinkle yourself, okay? If it doesn't need fresh lawn seed, so if the moss wasn't that heavy, but it just needs a bit of a feed, give it an autumn lawn feed. So an autumn-winter lawn feed is one that's higher in potassium than nitrogen, because the potassium is for good root development and root growth. We don't want a high nitrogen feed at this time of the year coming into the winter, because that's just going to drive grass growth, leaf growth, which we don't really want. So an autumn or winter lawn feed, which is high in potassium. And hopefully that helps John in Clare. Aoife's asking me, can I still sow anything in the veg patch, or is it too late in the year? Well, Aoife, yes, you can. Like I was saying to a question earlier, an answer to a question earlier, you can plant garlic now, no problem. You could also plant onion sets. You could plant lettuce, salad leaves. You sow them from seed, and within 6 weeks you're eating them on the plate, probably even quicker, even at this time of the year. You could plant a lot of spring crops like spring cabbage and things like that. There's loads you could still be doing in the veg patch. Now, if you didn't want to use all the veg patch, or perhaps for somebody else listening, you don't want to plant anything in the garden, the veg patch over winter, well, now is a great time. Once you've harvested everything that's in there, mulch it. Bring in lots of organic matter, because the soil there is what we depend upon for everything, for our food, for everything. So keep feeding the soil, keep adding lots and lots of organic matter. Now that Organic matter, it could be something like farmyard manure, it could be your own homemade compost, it could be shop compost, a garden centre compost, or it could be leaf mould, anything organic to add to improve the structure of the soil, to give the earthworms and to give the microbes things to feed on, which creates really healthy soil, because that's going to determine how successful you are next year in the veg garden. Or you could sow a green manure crop on the soil surface as well, and just dig it into the soil then again next spring. But if you want to plant something, I would say look at garlic or onions for harvesting next year, or if you want a quicker turnaround, look at things like salad leaves, lettuces, things like that. Now, another one here, and it's from Michael in Waterford. The leaves on my young cherry tree are full of holes. Is that normal, or do I need to treat it? Well, Michael, normal, no, but common, I suppose, yes. It's shot hole disease by the sound of it. Now, shot hole can be either fungal or bacterial. It's 90% of the time in this country it's fungal, right? Either which way, actually, it doesn't matter, because the treatment's going to be the we were talking about rose blackspot earlier, and the treatment is much the same. There's very little that you actually treat it with. It's about cultural control. So again, it's about good pruning. Make sure the branches of your cherry tree aren't crossing, because if they're crossing, that leads to congestion in the crown of the tree and poor air circulation, and the ideal conditions for the development of shot hole, okay? Also, if branches are crossing, they rub against each other in the wind, and that's where a wound will form. And these wounds are perfect entry points for diseases like shot hole or other diseases, okay? So we don't want crossing branches. We want branches going out, good air circulation, a good healthy plant. So again, give it a feed. You could drench it in the spring again with the copper sulfate, which I was talking about. It's my go-to weapon, if you like, in the arsenal against fungal problems. It is certified for use in organic gardening, but don't use it willy-nilly. I would say once a year. So it's certified for use under license, I think is the term, if you like, or under advisement. So good cultural control, good air circulation, keep it pruned, use something like the copper sulfate, and give it a good feed and a good tonic. And that's it for now. Thank you for those of you who are putting questions in the comments. If I don't get back to them this evening, I'll certainly get back to them on next week's Ask the Gardener. And as I say, during the week on my stories, I'll be putting up question boxes, so send your questions in there. And of course, do feel free, if you find this useful or you find this helpful, please feel free to tag somebody else who you think might enjoy the Ask the Gardener piece or has gardening questions, and feel free to share it to your network. I'd be absolutely delighted. Till the next time, thanks a million.